It's so mind-boggling that I'm even saying what I'm saying. I'm a farmer. I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. But I became just mesmerized with how the water flows out of the mountains because it all gets to the ocean at some point. I said, oh my God, that goes to the Gulf of Mexico. I bet I could paddle that. And that's exactly how it happened. That's how the idea came to be in my head.
Ann Rose is a farmer who lives off the grid in rural North Carolina. She spent nearly her entire life in the Appalachian region and has always felt a deep connection to the mountains and forests she calls home. A few years ago, Ann's farm was hit by a series of droughts, which made living off the land a lot more challenging. She felt stuck and ready for something different. So at 58 years old, Ann decided to go on an epic adventure. The plan was to kayak all the way from North Carolina to the Gulf of Mexico. Along the way, Ann had to face unfamiliar waters, unpredictable weather, and more than a few alligators. I'm Shelby Stanger, and this is Wild Ideas Worth Living, an REI Co-op Studios production presented by Capital One and the REI Co-op MasterCard. Ann's farm is located in the tiny town of Lansing, North Carolina, which has a population of just 155 people. She's been based in Lansing for nearly 30 years. Growing up, Ann moved around a lot with her parents, living on homesteads and in rural communities across Appalachia. One thing has been constant throughout her life, though. She's always spent time in nature. Ann Rose, welcome to Wild Ideas Worth Living. Tell us about the wild idea you completed in 2024.
I kayaked from right downstream from my farm in Lansing, North Carolina, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. Almost 2,000 miles.
Dang, amazing.
I still sometimes have to pinch myself because I'm not sure I did it. Some days I look back and go, did I really leave home?
So you have this amazing accent. And is this a North Carolina accent?
It's a mix of a little bit of Yankee, a little bit of foothills, and mostly Appalachian. Because I've been in Appalachia. Like where I was born in Ohio is Appalachia as well.
It's so fun. Was nature part of your life growing up?
Nature? Oh my goodness. Since I was a very young child, nature has always been my respite. My mom would go to church and I would run to the woods with my pony, never to be seen till dark, because I just loved being outside with animals and with my little pony I had as a child.
How old were you when you had this pony? I mean, this is so different than the way I grew up, so I'm just fascinated.
God, I was like 8. I was very feral. I call myself the feral, barefoot, tree climbing, creek wading, pony riding tom girl.
Okay, so you grew up really outdoorsy. Your parents moved a little bit for work or?
A lot. Out of poverty. Just moving around for work for my parents, yeah.
But then I read that you became a nurse.
Yeah. So after high school, which I didn't finish, I had 3 children, got married, then went to college. So I kind of have always done things backwards, which is totally fine. It worked out great. I went to college to get my nursing assistant certificate, and then I went back and got my licensed practical nurse, and then divorced and moving, and then I got my registered nurse, the associate's in science degree, after I bought my farm.
I'm curious about that decision to buy a farm, because that itself is a wild idea. How old were you, and what year was this, do you think?
1996. I'm 58 now. Do the math. I was 30-something. Yeah, I got a divorce and a horse, and I needed room for my horse and 3 kids.
How big is your farm?
28 acres.
Wow, that's a big farm.
It is. It is mountainside. It's pasture because it's too steep to do much with. But I do have some growing land where I do farm now full time. That's what I went into after I left nursing. And so I did some terracing, put in a bunch of garden beds, put hoop houses over them, and now I'm growing and selling full time at the farmer's market. About 15 years ago, I sold the house that came with the farm and 1 acre. And I moved into the woods. I have a tiny shack I built with a chainsaw. I've been off grid 18 years, and I'm not changing that ever.
Wait,
I'm not
back
ever.
up. You built a tiny house with a chainsaw?
Yeah. So I used a chainsaw to cut like lumber and things to make my tiny house. It's like 400 square feet. It started out as an 8 by 12, but I've added on as time went by. So it's as big as it's going to get. No more building.
And you built it yourself?
Yeah.
Anne's tiny house is completely off-grid and powered by solar energy. No matter the season, you can always find her outside on her land. She raises sheep and goats for meat production and grows organic produce like squash, turnips, kale, and tons of tomatoes. It brings Anne a lot of joy to work with the earth and grow food for herself and her neighbors. But it's hard work, and things can easily go wrong. In fact, 13 years ago, Anne got very ill from eating some bad canned carrots.
So I got botulism, botulinum toxicity, from some carrots I canned very poorly because I still did it like Grandma did it. I didn't use a pressure canner. So 81-day coma. I was in the hospital on a ventilator, and it's very different being the patient after having been the nurse. But I was unconscious, so my raft did not leave the bed rails, basically. So I got over that and got better, and I knew that I wasn't going to recover fully unless I changed the way I ate.
But you were in a coma for 81 days?
The coma was 54 days. It was an 81-day hospital stay because I had to go through the ventilator weaning unit to learn to breathe again to get discharged.
You're saying this really nonchalantly, like...
Oh, it's because I was a nurse. I'm just saying, I just have that attitude because of my nursing history. That's been 13 years ago, though. So I've had plenty of time to recover from that. But then 6 years after that, I developed cancer. I had lymphatic cancer, oral lymphatic cancer. Because as a teenager, I was a dumb little smarty pants who thought she knew everything, and I smoked and I drank. And I look back now at 58, my God, I wish I hadn't have done that.
Okay, well, what do you think helped get you through? Do you think it was your faith, or do you think it was more like what you ate?
No faith. No faith. It was 100% attitude, because when they told me I had oral and lymphatic cancer, I said, cancer. I just have always believed that our attitudes, that personality we have, is what drives us or doesn't drive us. And I think I have a sassy attitude. I always have. And my parents used to call me stubborn. I'm like, it's not stubbornness, it's independence. So I've learned to change up the language for myself to help me. And I think women are the world's worst at talking bad inside to ourselves. And we have to stop that. You know, if I have a bad day and I've screwed up something, I'm like, I try to find the thing I did good and right and say, damn, Ann, look what you did. That was great. And I may be only talking inside my head, but it's changing everything on the outside when I do that.
Just 6 weeks after her diagnosis, Anne had surgery to remove her cancer. She was lucky to recover quickly, and 5 days later was back to work on the farm. Even though she still gets short of breath, Anne stays physically active. For most of the day, she's on her feet, chopping wood, planting, and harvesting. In her spare time, Anne loves to kayak and explore the local creek and river near her home. She's been paddling for decades, sometimes with her girlfriends and sometimes alone. 20 years ago, Anne came up with a wild idea to take her kayak farther than ever before. Let's get into your wild idea. I could talk to you for days about so many things, but you had this wild idea just recently, right? 2024?
Well, the idea was 20 years ago, but I let it recede to the back of my mind, and I gave up because I was working and raising 3 kids. So the idea had been there, but smothered under life, chapters of life.
Okay, what was this wild idea?
Okay, so I live in the mountains, and I have a little stream on my property that runs into a bigger stream, into a bigger stream, into a river. And one day, when I was doing home health nursing, driving up through Ashe County, up by the North Fork of the New River, I'm looking at that water, and I'm like, where is all that darn water going? All the time. It runs all the time. And I had just left seeing a patient who met me in their backyard. He was 90 and wasn't standing on a cane. And I was looking, I was mesmerized. I didn't hear him approach me from the house because I was mesmerized by this spring in his backyard, a pipe 8 inches across that was just shooting water out of it, like a full stream of water into a little rock branch in his backyard. And he walked up to me and he said, "Jonas up?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Jonas up." And I realized he meant, "Do you want a sip of water?" Because that stream coming out of the side of that mountain was pure spring water. And he reached down and took a drink with his hands. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." Which I drank out of springs before, but he invited me and I thought, why not? And when I left his home, I watched the creek from his house and I became just mesmerized with how the water flows out of the mountains, because it all gets to the ocean at some point. So I started thinking about it, and I broke out the old paper road atlas, and I went, da, 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 da. I said, "Oh, my God, that goes to the Gulf of Mexico. All of my water here goes to the Gulf of Mexico. I bet I could paddle that." And that's exactly how it happened. That's how the idea came to be in my head.
What year do you think this was?
That was in 2005.
So you had this idea in 2005. Were you still divorced at the time, or?
Yeah, I'd already been divorced. I lived in Ashe County with my children. The primary reason I probably put it on the back burner was because I was still raising my children. So once they were gone, I did think of it, and I thought, well, I'm farming full time. What season can I leave and not lose crops and not get crops planted? When is the right time? And I argued with myself for a few years because I was procrastinating. Part of that little voice in your head was going, "You can't do that. You have too much work to do."
The idea to kayak to the Gulf of Mexico had been percolating in the back of Anne's mind for years. She wanted to make it happen one day, but at the time, her life was too busy to take months away from her farm and her kids. In recent years, the region where Anne lives has been hit by several consecutive years of drought. Anne started to grow frustrated. The lack of water made it almost impossible to grow crops and maintain the farm. She needed a break from the daily grind, so she decided to turn her 20-year-old dream into a reality.
So it was in the spring before I went. I was just like at the coffee shop going, I think I'm going to do it. I think I need to do it. Because the 4 years prior to the trip, my farm was really scalded. We didn't have much rain. My farm was failing because I ran out of water. The temperate rainforest atmosphere of the mountains was diminishing, and it was hot, and it was muggy, and it was dry, and my pasture grasses were dry, and my spring on my farm had dried up. And I was pumping water out of the creek below my farm and hauling it back onto my farm. So I had this it day, and I'm like, it. I'm leaving. I'm not doing this another year and go in the hole and spend my savings and not have crops to take to the market after the month of July because it quits raining.
So it sounds like you had a bad drought year. Like you had a year
4 years
no water,
in a row.
4 years, and you're over us.
So I was at the coffee shop whining on my laptop because I go to the coffee shop for internet because I don't have internet. And this young lady walks in and she said, "My friend Brittany wanted us to meet." And I had mentioned it to a few people in the farmer's market summer before. And she says, "I'm a documentarist, and I heard you're going to take a long kayak journey, and I'd like to film it." And I went, "Really? I'm just kayaking." Like I still didn't think much of the whole journey. For me, I was running. I was getting away from some failing farm business. I was at that point, I was just like, F it, I'm leaving. And that was the attitude I had when I left. I'm like, I'm out of here, y'all. I'm tired. I'm older. I can't farm like this anymore because I can't haul water like that magnitude of hauling water. And I was like, yeah, if you want to, you can film it, but I'm not sure why. She's like, "It's a long journey. I think we should film it." And I said, "I'm too old to wait. I have to do it now or never. I'm leaving in 3 months. Can you be ready?" She's like, "I guess."
If there's anything I've learned from hosting Wild Ideas Worth Living, it's that spending time outside connecting to nature is fundamental to our health and well-being. I've always believed that a little adventure is life's antidote to just about anything. But the truth is, millions of Americans lack access to the outdoors and don't feel safe or welcome outside. That's why every year Capital One and the REI Co-op MasterCard donate $2 million to the REI Cooperative Action Fund, supporting nonprofits that create a more equitable outdoors for everyone. Plus, the REI Co-op MasterCard offers great benefits, rewarding everyday purchases to support your outdoor adventures. To top it all off, you can see if you're pre-approved for the REI Co-op MasterCard with no risk to your credit score. Visit rei.com/MasterCard-podcast today to learn more about these benefits and to see if you're pre-approved. That's rei.com/MasterCard-podcast. Terms apply. As an avid surfer, I spend countless hours in the San Diego sun, chasing waves and going for runs on the beach. But did you know that even with proper SPF protection, the sun and other environmental stressors can still damage your skin? Over time, this exposure can lead to inflammation, premature aging, and an increased risk of skin cancer. That's why daily after sun care is just as essential as applying sunscreen, and why I'm excited to introduce you to Terns, a San Diego-based company committed to redefining what it means to have healthy skin. Crafted by world-renowned scientists, Terns' high-performance products are powered by a potent blend of marine and natural ingredients, promoting optimal skin health. I personally love their flagship Everyday Moisturizing Lotion, which helps restore and repair your skin barrier after a day of surfing. And for those intense sunburns, their Mayday Gel Cream promotes rapid regeneration. So whether you're catching waves or hiking trails, I highly suggest making Terns a part of your daily routine. Check out their incredible line of products at terns.com, that's TERNS.com, and use code WILD to receive a 25% discount off your first order. That's WILD at checkout to get 25% off. Ann Rose is a farmer who lives off the grid in Lansing, North Carolina. In 2024, she kayaked nearly 2,000 miles from her farm to the Gulf of Mexico. She started in a local creek in Lansing and paddled northwest to meet the Ohio River. From the Ohio, Ann connected to the Mississippi River, which she took all the way down to the Gulf. Ann worked with a filmmaker named Haley Mellon to raise money and document the journey. They rigged cameras to the boat, which was a 10.5-foot long Hobie kayak. Most of the time, Ann used a paddle, but the kayak was also equipped with a rudder and foot pedals. The boat's internal storage could hold a few weeks of supplies. Since the trip lasted for months, Ann met up with Haley periodically for supply drops and repairs. Day one, you had like 200 people come out to meet you in your hometown just to send you off.
Yeah.
That had to have been really emotional. I mean, do you even know all those people?
No. I might have known, maybe I knew 30 or 40 of them, but I didn't know them all by name. I recognized faces. It was pretty incredible. I was so touched and honored that they came out to say, get out of town. So I didn't really realize that people would want to see me take off and go and do this. I told myself, they're just here to see me fail. So I'll show them. Like, that's that voice in your head that tries to talk you out of doing things. So my sassy attitude said, I'll show them. I'm going to show them. I'm going to make it to the Gulf. And the other part of my brain was saying, God, all these people gave me money. I can't let them down. They gave me their hard-earned money. I have to make it. I absolutely have to. So, you have that little internal battle with your little voices in your, I do anyway. They never shut up.
Do you remember those first few days? What were they like?
It rained on me the whole first day. And I'm like, oh, why am I leaving? It's raining now. The first 4 days, the film crew was with me. After that, I was just wearing GoPros. We had them on the front of the boat looking at me. I had one on me looking out. And I just had a solar panel to charge batteries to keep the GoPros filming. And I had no idea if those things were even recording or not. I was going.
Let's talk about what was on your kayak. What did you pack on it?
I had a couple of dry bags, one full of food, one with kitchen gear. And then the bigger bag had a hammock and a small tent, like a little cocoon tent that you just slide into feet first. But my hammock also had a mosquito net over it. You could zip into that as well. I took both of those, and I took a couple of changes of clothes. I don't know why. I stunk so bad the whole time, I didn't even need to change. Because the water, I bathed in the New River. I was afraid to bathe in the Ohio and the Mississippi because of just the pollution there. And there's no place really where it's not industrialized. There's very little areas of those rivers that are natural.
Did you have like safety equipment?
Life jacket. In the state of Virginia, you're required to have a life jacket, a safety whistle, and a knife. I got to the Ohio River before I realized I needed a flag on my boat so the ships could see me because I'm so tiny on a kayak, which my cousin Kathy fixed up for me with some crap we bought at Dick's Sporting Goods with a bright orange hunting vest we cut up and stuck it on a piece of PVC pipe. And I took it all the way. It worked all the way. I had a Garmin, a mini Garmin that my neighbor who does a lot of large animal hunting loaned me. So my kids and my immediate family could track me and see where I was. So if I got like separated from my boat or my phone, I could still communicate with that with a short few words text, and it gave me weather updates because I did not have much cell service the entire way. Very little cell service.
Where exactly were you sleeping?
I did a lot of stealth camping. So that's like where you sneak and hide and don't let anybody see where you're at because you're a little freaked out about where you're at. So on the Ohio River, the river banks are covered by factories or chain link fence. There's not many places to get out. So I paddling, it's getting dark, and I find this small tributary coming into the river, and it's between two barge stacks. And I paddle in there really hard, and I get up in the waterway, and I'm exhausted. I am beat by the heat. I get up about 50 foot of this little tiny tributary, barely deep enough to float my boat. And I'm so exhausted, I pull my boat up and I laid down my camping mat and I lay down. Like I don't put up my tent, my hammock. I don't drink water. I just laid down. And I laid there just like all you can hear is the hum of the factories on either side, just buzzing and whirling and clanking, and it just reminded me of some weird movie from the 70s. And I'm laying there, and this little fawn comes out of the woods, steps over me, and I'm just looking at it. I didn't move anything but my eyeballs. I just laid there. A little spotted baby fawn steps over me and goes and gets a drink of water from the stream and comes back over me and hops back into the woods. And I just giggled for like an hour. I was so thrilled to see that there was a wildlife thing in that part of the river where it was so mechanized and full of industry and noise and stinking pollution and rotten fish. And this little deer just comes right out and steps over me. It just gave me a lot of joy to see that baby deer there at that minute. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I just laid there and slept all night.
Cowboy camped. I love it.
Yeah.
Cowgirl camped.
Yeah.
After 3 weeks on creeks and tributaries, Anne reached the Ohio River, where she had to navigate around massive barges and ships. There were places where she had to take her kayak out of the water and drag her stuff over land because dams or turbines made the water impassable. While she saw a lot of friendly wildlife like the fawn, she also had a number of close calls with alligators.
The first encounter was Baton Rouge. I had paddled over to get out of the river, and something under my boat did a big swirly whirly. And it was like, whoa, that's a big damn catfish is what my brain said. And I got out of my boat and looked back, and I went, holy shit, that was not a catfish. That was my first encounter. And then I was more aware, looking out for them, because they don't chase you down. But if you get in their home, you could have trouble. So,
wow.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. I did not do enough alligator research before I left.
Wow, it sounds terrifying.
It was.
What was the most difficult part of the trip? Was there ever a part where you just wanted to give up and turn around, or no?
Yeah. So I got to the coal hole, which is a nickname given to the area where there are like 6 or 8 giant loading ports where all the ships meet, the barges unload, and the big ships get loaded and they go back out to sea. So I had been traveling on the rocky shores, trying to stay out of the lane of all of the big sea-bearing ships. I think I was like 3 or 4 days before the end. And there's this, I don't know what the correct word is, but when they moor a lot of barges together, it's like a big parking lot of barges and they're all tied down. And they're big as a Walmart parking lot. There's like, 100 of them tied together. And there's this little narrow path between the barges and the rock shore. So I'm like, I have to go through there because I don't want to be out in the shipping lane. And so I started through there. And right when my brain said, you better not go there, 2 alligators spun under my boat, almost split me out into the river, and broke my rudder off the back of my boat. And I was stranded. Because in that water, I really couldn't paddle good enough because the pedals are much faster than the paddling. So I can't pedal without a rudder. I could have used my paddle, but I was just freaked out. I was freaked the f out. And I called Haley and I said, I need help. Because the boats were just on it. I mean, the ships were just one after the other. The waves are 10 foot high.
Yeah, and you had alligators underneath you. So what did you do?
Oh, well, they spun out and left. As far as I know, they were not like attacking me. But later we figured out what the problem was. And it was on me because the fins on the underside of the boat, under my pedals, what I was swishing to get through the water with, they're modeled after how a penguin swims. And an alligator's favorite food is a duck.
Oh.
So they were hitting my boat thinking I was a duck. Like checking me out to see if it was a wounded duck that they could eat.
Wow.
But I had to call Haley and get help. And she brought some people that were carrying film crew, and they came and they fixed my rudder. It was repairable. So, yeah, that was the most terrifying moment because I really thought, I'm like, and you know what my brain did? My brain said, if they knock you out, breathe in. You don't want to live for the tearing apart part. Just get it over with. That's exactly where my brain was. Because I'm like, if they get me out of this boat, they're just going to tear me into pieces. I might as well drown and get it over with because I didn't want to live through the tearing me up part,
And you are one badass woman. So, okay, you survive these alligator encounters, your rudder is fixed, and then after that moment, you were so close to the end.
Yeah, so I was like, I had told Haley, I said, I think I have to quit. And she's like, you've only got like 50 or 60 miles to go. And I'm like, okay, never mind, we're going. I was like, I was so close to the end, for sure. I was just exhausted. I was stressed out. I was sunburned all to hell. The damage I did to my skin will never be repaired, even through sunscreen, through lotion, through hat, through UV clothing. I was frazzled at the end. But I had enough energy to pop a champagne cork when we got to 0.
Yeah, that must have been pretty crazy. Like, you had to feel really good about yourself. This was like a 20-year plus dream in the making.
Yeah,
and you made it happen. How do you think this trip changed you?
Definitely a bunch of changes. So, go back to botulism. Having been sick and recovered, having had cancer and recovered, those 2 events humbled me quite a bit. And this has just been the icing on the cake. Humbled me to see the support of my neighbors and my friends and my people in my village. It's humbled me to see how many people. There were people on the river. There's like all these social media pages. You can say, hey, I'm at mile marker, da-da-da-da, I'm out of water. People just show up. They just show up. The river angels, like the Appalachian Trail has the trail magic people. The riverways have river angels, and they just show up. This one guy picked me a gallon bag of muscadines from his vine and left it by the river under a certain hotel parking lot and said, I got to go to my kid's ball game. I'm leaving you this bag here. And I was out of water and food that day, and that was right below Baton Rouge. And I seen him running back to the parking lot, and I was like, hey, what's your Venmo? I need to pay you for the groceries. And he just waves like, go on. And so I had food for 3 more days. He just brought me a bunch of whatever he could grab at the Dollar General, and that's what I had until the next day that I could get out of the river. So it's people like that that were just incredible to just show up, don't know me from Adam, and just bring me food and water.
After 82 days on the water, Anne finally arrived to the Gulf of Mexico. It was a triumphant finish, but she was confronted with an unexpected surprise on the other side of the finish line. The day that Anne completed her trip, Hurricane Helene made its way up to North Carolina and devastated Anne's town. Her house survived, but she had a fair amount of water and roof damage, and many of her neighbors lost their homes. What was that like, coming off of this high? I just did the thing that I wanted to do my whole life to then, your community.
I did have that little part of me that was sad, when I got home, because there wasn't going to be a welcome home party. I felt that a little bit, but I was so in the throes of the disaster and the recovery, that faded in 10 seconds. And I was like, where do you need me? What do you want me to do? Put me somewhere. I didn't take the trip for a coming home party, I took the trip because I wanted people to be aware of water, and water is what destroyed that town and all the towns in western North Carolina right now. So the irony of it all is just still mind-boggling. I have a logo t-shirt that says stronger than the current, because that's a phrase that I just spit out when I almost got sucked under a barge. And Haley's like, oh my God, that's your logo. And I'm like, okay, I'll keep that. And so we were filming back at home after the storm, and I did this little bit about the town and how we were all working together. And I said something like, I know that my people in this town are stronger than the current. And so it's kind of become a little thing now, because we are. We've pulled through it, and we're going to be okay.
Over the past year, Anne's community has banded together to rebuild their town. While she's been focused on the recovery of Lansing, Anne thinks about her kayak journey often. She's excited to share the adventure with folks as Haley's film makes the rounds at various festivals. The movie is titled River Warrior. You can find out more about it on Instagram at River Warrior 2024. To keep in touch with Anne directly, you can follow her on Instagram at Rose Mountain Farm. That's ROSEMountainFarm. Wild Ideas Worth Living is part of the REI Podcast Network. It's hosted by me, Shelby Stanger, produced by Annie Fassler, Sylvia Thomas, and Sam Piers Nitzberg of Puddle Creative. Our senior producers are Jenny Barber and Hannah Boyd. Our executive producers are Paolo Motola and Joe Crosby. As always, we love it when you follow the show, take time to rate it, and write a review wherever you listen. And remember, some of the best adventures happen when you follow your wildest ideas.